I am Susvara. Hear me roar. Welcome to the re-review. Two solid years, over 100 reviews in the flagship category, well over 200-300 units tested. What does it mean when you chase the dragon? This headphone, in fact this exact headphone, the Hi-Fiman Susvara 2.5 variant, was loaned to the channel Convince Me Audio 2 years ago from one of our viewers, Grant, titling that video Where the Journey Ends. It's laughable 2 years later to think that's where my thought processes lay. In fact, it had just begun. Let's discuss this notorious headphone after 2 years of thorough testing on the channel on some of the highest equipment the industry has to offer. I find it extraordinarily fitting thanking Grant again 2 years later for the same headphones for the same purpose, with a far more in-depth and knowledge that hopefully I can share with you, and hopefully you'll find some use out of it. Now these headphones, 60 ohms, anywhere from 74 dB sensitivity to 83 dB sensitivity. Nobody seems to have a proper consensus in regards to this because they all seem to measure slightly differently, so they are extraordinarily hard to drive. In fact, they have become notorious for this fact. These units have been ran on speaker amplifiers. We have found in our community that these headphones have been ran on monoblocks, powerful amplifiers, well exceeding over something what a headphone would require. And finally, I think we have the answers why. First and foremost, let's get rid of some of the myths that seems to be running around rampant in communities and forums. You can get the Hi-Fiman Susvara loud on anything. This is not the reason why we put a Hi-Fiman Susvara on monoblocks, for example. This is not why we put it on a Hollow Audio Bliss that outputs 12 watts into 32 ohms. It's not the amount of watts, because the Susvaras can get to ear-bleeding loud levels on something like a Motamo 2, which costs $150, on a Topping A90. In fact, I reviewed this unit back at the beginning of the channel on a Topping A90 and an HDVD 800 amplifier and DAC combo using just its DAC. That's not what it's about. This headphone requires enormous amounts of headroom, large amounts of current, and unfortunately the power supply, the distortion levels are just not on point on the lower end amplifiers. Op-amp based amps like the Topping A90, it just doesn't cut it. Now over the last 2 years we've had some fantastic innovations and introductions of headphone amplifiers in the industry. Prior to this, when I did the review, there were very few. Now we have the Q-Style CMA15, which just drives Susvaras perfectly nicely. Yes, it does, at $2,500. We have the Or and Hypsos at $3,000. We have the Bliss at $3,000. All these were non-existent at the time. The CMA15 is a current drive amp with slightly different tech to proper full-on current drive modes. So, why do we need such hefty power supplies, and why do we need such high current? Getting Susvara to 80 dB levels of noise, for example, on a 1 kHz sine wave is easy. It can be done, but that's just a tone. If you fancy listening to a 1 kHz signal all day long, put it on a top in a 90. You won't have any problems, right? The problem is, with these types of amplifiers, what you find is, as you go up, as you provide gain to the headphones, as you get the volume louder and louder, the treble region has a tendency to increase, leaving the bass region behind. Hence why you see so many reviews of hi-fi Susvaras being driven on poor end equipment and saying they're shouty, they have a harsh mid-range, they have no bass slam, etc. It's fortunate that this myth is slowly dissipating, and kind of the more knowledge that seems to be out there, the better the community is informed. When you play a song, it plays these tones at 20 kHz, at 17 kHz, at 20 Hz, at 50 Hz, at 150 Hz, all simultaneously. Being able to keep up with all of these, providing enough current and voltage correctly is key. Headroom is key. I'm going to link you to an article that Cameron wrote from Golden Sounds that is really simple to understand why, with actual measurements, Susvaras require such headroom. Okay, moving on. Susvaras are a strange beast. They require a lot of headroom. On the channel, I pursued the highest level of performance I could get out of these headphones for the last 2 years. The journey began with a single benchmark, giving fantastic bass performance, excellent open stage, and yet I felt as though the Spring 2 wasn't enough at the time, the Extreme Edition. We pursued to the May KTE. We found these drivers can not only pick up amp differences, obviously, but even the DAC you use is highly observable, even to the nitty-gritty ends of the spectrum where there's a lot of tumult about cables, where the cables make a difference, where the interconnect seems to make a difference on the super high-end chains. What equipment have we ran the Susvaras on? Let's work our way backwards, shall we? Right now, the Bliss and the Wave Dream from Rockner. Prior to this, the May KTE, the Serene KTE, and the Benchmark monoblocks. Prior to that, a single benchmark and a Spring 2 Extreme Edition, incorporating the Dave, the M-Scaler, the Core TT2, the IDSD Signature, the Or, the Hypsos. The list seems to be endless. Incidentally, I put down the hi-fi Susvaras. I sold my hi-fi Susvaras. This is back here for this re-review only, and then it's going to go back to Grant. I put down the Susvaras because I couldn't take it anymore. I thought I had pushed these headphones on a $30,000 chain as far as it needed to go. And incidentally, when these came back in and we pushed it on the Bliss and the Wave Dream, I realized the monoblocks weren't no longer necessary. Now, a Bliss and a Wave Dream gives you the same performance, punch, visceral impact, stage, textural information, and my goodness, timbre, as that mad setup I had going here up to January. I guess the question you would probably ask me is why? I think it became a bit of an obsession. The hi-fi Susvaras are the best planars in the world. Nothing matches them, nothing comes close, and nothing has beaten them. I literally recently just reviewed the ZMF Calderas back there, the latest addition to the planar family. I have compared these to more planars than I can count. Not only that, I have the Warwick Aperio $30,000 system here at the moment. I recently had the Valkyria come in and is going to come back for the full review later on. The AB1266, Phi and TC. have been tested against this LCD5 on some of the highest end chains I could put together, or Hypso, Serene, Dave, M-Scaler, anything you throw the Susvaras on that can power it properly, from the Riviera AIC10 all the way up to power amps, Purify. That thing was crazy. That thing was like 400 watts at 4 ohms. It was insanity levels. And Susvaras just shrugs them off. There is no ceiling to these headphones. You will never catch the dragon. Placing the Bliss and the Wave Dream on Susvaras has been the best experience yet. I've heard the Susvaras on our AIC10 and the Lampezator. That actually didn't impress me, by the way. On the Mulla Mulla DAC, still didn't impress me. Nothing has impressed me as much as Bliss and the Wave Dream. If we're talking about technicality, has the best timbre of any headphone until you jump up to a Valkyria for the genres it's good at. Those are a very weird headphone. And obviously the Aperio. This is the summit tier headphone of the planar realm for now in 2023. You can push your chain up to 30,000 and still it will give more. The higher you go up the chain, the more accurate the timbre seems to become, the more viscerally impactful it seems to be. Sub-bass and the ease of play, the effortlessness of the driver feels very electrostatic. And tonally, the Susvaras changes with very high-end equipment, amplifier to amplifier, etc. It was the Bliss and the Wave Dream that allowed me to come back to some semblance of normality after the Aperio and the Wave Dream and all that mad setup over there. I honestly thought the Susvaras were broken for the first 9 days after I heard Aperio. Check out the review here if it's been released already. But that's a system by itself that's 30,000. It's in a different league, it's electrostatic. We're not going to count that. But we are going to count everything that's been released in the last 3 or 4 years against the Susvaras. The LCD5, 1266, the Utopia, the D8000 Pro. Here's the thing, there might be some headphones that will give you a tiny bit more in some mad area. Maybe it's the build quality. Maybe it's the slight ease of slamminess on easier equipment. Maybe it's a bit more resolving due to the tonality, LCD5 for example. Or maybe it retrieves details better, like the Bravera from Warwick. Check out the review here. But never have I found a headphone yet that is as consistent throughout every aspect of the headphone performance. Bass performance, treble performance, mid-range performance, timbre, spatial presentation, ease of delivery, effortlessness, whereas it's as if the driver doesn't exist, where the sound seems to be coming out of the air and yet slamming your eardrums like a truck. It has a sound characteristic and ease of play I've not heard in any dynamic or planar headphone yet. I think there's a reason why Hi-Fi-Man have not released another Susvara as of right now. It's been 6 years. I don't think they can beat it. I think the next Susvara iteration that will come out will be different, might be slightly better somewhere, but it's not going to make OG Susvaras redundant. So what have I learned in 2 years and multiple thousands of pounds worth of equipment? I have learned that the Hi-Fi-Man Susvaras are annoying, difficult to drive, difficult to synergize, but when you get the best out of them, they are still king in the planar and dynamic realm of the world. Every other headphone, kneel. Susvaras are still king. If you like reviews such as these, consider coming over to Patreon and joining us in the private Telegram chat, supporting the channel, and hearing about these headphones and others as they come in for review before they land on YouTube. If not, your like, your share, your subscription is all I require from you to allow the channel to grow. And if you fancy the original Susvara review, click here. I do apologize, it was the very first review on the channel in regards to lighting and sound, but hopefully the innate part of the review should highlight how highly valued I think these headphones are in our community. And a special thank you for the 100th review on the channel. Thank you for the support. I can't believe we got here. This is insane. Until next time, peace.